So glad everybody could be here today to join our mid-year press conference. So good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for Better Business Bureau's 2024 mid-year report. My name is Heather Massey, Vice President of Communications and Community Relations for Better Business Bureau, serving the heart of Texas. Today, we will cover a few highlights and data demonstrating the impact of scams on Texas residents based on reports submitted to BBB Scam Tracker. Each year, BBB holds virtual press conferences for mid-year and end-of-year reports to keep Texas residents and media professionals updated on marketplace trends and challenges. It is our hope that these quick, informative presentations give you a snapshot of what is happening across our state so you are better prepared to educate and empower residents to avoid falling for a scam. As a quick overview, BBB Scam Tracker is an interactive system that allows consumers to search for and report scams, which was recognized as the best scam fighting tool in 2023 by Global Anti-Scam Alliance and scamadvisor.com. Scam Tracker provides us with a wide range of information and data that we are constantly monitoring and evaluating. It's an invaluable tool that it is only truly useful if we share the information we gain from it with our communities, which is why we host these virtual presentations. Anyone can use BBB Scam Tracker to search for and report instances of fraud, which we then use to issue warnings, share with appropriate agencies, or through other methods of public outreach. As we cover the information and data today, I want to take a moment to draw attention to a 2021 study sponsored by the FTC that concluded less than 5% of victims of mass market fraud report their experience to BBB or a government entity. So while many of the findings we will present today are shocking, there's a high likelihood it only reflects a small percentage of what Texas consumers are encountering in the marketplace. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. And I will turn it over to Jason Meza, our Senior Director of Media Relations and Community Engagement, who will now discuss what has been reported so far this year. Jason?
All right, thank you, Heather. Good afternoon. Glad to be here with you. Scams have a huge impact on our marketplace, not just in Texas, but it goes far beyond the financial cost of what happens. Multiple studies have shown that people who fall victim to a scam lose self-confidence in reporting and identifying themselves to identify fraud interactions. And it affects their mental and emotional well-being at the same time, influences their quality of life, their future purchasing habits. Of course, the financial toll of a scam is also a huge component to the impact these schemes have. So we'll cover that data today. I encourage you to keep in mind that each report represents a person. Each dollar they lose to a scam is money they don't have for other necessities. So it's widely imperative that we're here to talk about this. The majority of the reports that BBB receives are from people who encounter scams. Real people that are trying to overcome a challenge or obstacle they turn to the marketplace for help, and only to be taken advantage of by a scammer, which compounds their issue. So it's our mission to be the leader in advancing marketplace trust. And these bad actors daily directly tilt the scale in the opposite direction, which is why we are here. We spend a lot of time on our data. We're proud of it. And we have the resources to help spread awareness of these practices at the same time. Thankfully, there are far more honest and ethical and legit businesses out there that are than the fraudulent ones, and that's the good part about this. Any other business carefully before we want you to take the time to carefully vet each business before you go into a contractor relationship, online seller, potential employer, any other business that carefully you check their references and check their accreditation status with BBB, check their complaints, check the reviews, but take that time to do your extra homework. A great starting point is us. Our website, Better Business Bureau Online, is bbb.org. That's where you can check. It's a great cross-reference for your starting point. You can also check out the business phone number, email address. All that is also up to date with our scam tracker system. So let's go into the data. Here in Texas, since the year 2020, residents have reported almost $20 million lost to scams. That's a median loss per report of about $160. And your average person who encounters a scam may lose less than $200. But it's important to note that doesn't include the time, the money, the effort that's required from that person to identify they've been stolen, they've been taken by a scammer. Fully recovering from ID theft can take years. And since 2020, the scams that have taken the heaviest toll in terms of financial losses are investment and cryptocurrency scams. online purchases, romance scams are huge. We'll be diving into cryptocurrency and investment scams in just a bit, as these have been particularly prevalent so far in this year. A few key highlights we've uncovered by analyzing the 2,600 scam reports we've received here in Texas so far this year, similar to what we've been seeing since 2020. The highest total losses coming from cryptocurrency and investment scams, online purchase, and romance scams this year are just those. Among all the scam types we've seen, residents have lost $4.3 million. I repeat that, $4.3 million at a median loss of about $154 per incident. So once again, we see the substantial impact these scams have, especially investment and cryptocurrency scams are having on residents here in the state. And those losses come in at nearly $1 million more than the online purchase scams. It's huge. So by plotting each scam report based on their zip code, a victim's location, we're able to pinpoint regions here in the state that seem to be particularly affected by these tactics. It's easy to recognize, obviously, the concentration of the reports right along I-35, the Metroplex, Austin, San Antonio, Houston. We also see reports coming from other less populated areas throughout the state. So generally speaking, we expect to see a greater concentration of scam reports coming from the metro areas, the higher population densities. But we can see scams are obviously widespread. It's not just an issue in the big metros. So the impact of scams, they've recently increased in an extraordinary amount. We've seen that we watched the data just within the past few years, 2021 to 2024. In these years, we typically saw total annual losses hover around the $2 million range. This trend was blown away in 2023, as you can see on your screen, when total losses exceeded $9 million just in the state of Texas. And we're seeing the signs this year may be a repeat of what we saw last year. The numbers are already creeping back up. Those losses this year at 4.3 million, we've exceeded the annual amounts reported to us back in 2021 and 2022. It's about half of last year's annual impact. So the numbers are back. They're stunning, and they closely mimic what we saw last year at the same time. So there's a good chance we'll see another year with total losses reaching or exceeding $9 million, unfortunately. Everybody's at risk of encountering a scam. We hear this question all the time. Who is more vulnerable? Which age population? Which range? And unfortunately, everybody is a target. Our findings this year show that the most vulnerable generally is, as the bell curve, is exposures. That the people that are in that 35 to 44-year-old range, losses are highest among 45 to 54-year-olds at the same time, who account for about 37% of our reports and the $4 million in loss this year. So often the belief is that our senior citizens are most at risk to falling for scams, but the data shows a little bit different. Over the past few years, it tells a different story, as you can see. So there isn't quite as identifiable a pattern when we look at this from a median loss per report perspective. Yes, our 45 to 50-year-olds are the front runners at $174 per median loss. They're closely followed by the two age groups that are at the lowest ends of the total losses, and that's the 18 to 24 age group at $150 per loss, and the 65% plus group, and they're at the $162 median loss. It's important to note here that not every scam reported to Better Business Bureau includes a financial toll, at least not at the offset. Many reports we receive come from people who identified the fraud interaction and are sharing the information to let others know what they saw. And others, yes, do lose their personal sensitive information, their ID. That doesn't include a direct impact on their wallets. But again, ID theft takes years to clean up. The scams create the highest median losses on this screen among each age group. They reflect how many people within the age group are interacting within the market. So what this means are younger residents who are more likely to be seeking employment opportunities, more at risk to encounter an employment scam, while investment and cryptocurrency scams take the largest toll on groups that may be willing to make a more financial risk or financial investment. They're at higher risk. So the home improvement area, the romance scams affect those residents obviously over the age of 45, as you can see in this screen in the orange. So without further ado, we need to turn our attention to, of course, the next part of this presentation. I'm going to pass this over to our Director of Education, Katie Galan. She's going to spend a few minutes talking about the cryptocurrency and the increasing risk of investment scams this year. So thanks for your attention. Turning it to Katie.
Thanks, Jason. So across the nation, cryptocurrency and investment scams have really been increasing at a really rapid rate. And so we're seeing that reflected right here in our state of Texas as well. BBB's 2023 Scam Tracker Risk Report identified these as the #1 riskiest consumer scams in 2023 based on an 80% susceptibility rate. So when we talk about the susceptibility rate, what we're talking about is the likelihood to lose money to the scam once it's been encountered. And so an extremely high median loss of $3,800. And these scams are carried out through a lot of different tactics. Usually include extremely sophisticated dashboards and systems that make it really difficult to identify as fraudulent until, of course, thousands of dollars have been invested. So these scams are really complicated, and we receive many highly detailed reports from victims describing their experience. And as you can expect, they include a lot of really technical terms and investment or cryptocurrency language, with the victim having to take multiple steps in transferring money from one fund to another. They can spend weeks or even months mining for Bitcoins. They'll deposit money into digital wallets by using multiple ATMs, and some other specific strategies. So unless you're really deeply knowledgeable about cryptocurrency, a lot of the language can be pretty difficult to understand. But what we can identify are some common points when the scam begins. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So one way we see these come across is by using the romantic element. So scammers build an online relationship with their target, begin introducing them to cryptocurrency concepts in a pretty casual kind of conversational way. And then they're typically going to claim to be a trader or an investor, and that being their primary source of income. And then they're going to lean really heavily on the flattery. Now, something to keep in mind is that the scammers who are using this tactic, they're very patient. That's really the thing here. They're really playing kind of the waiting game or the long game. So now in some cases, the first few investments are going to work perfectly. So the victim's going to receive that promised return. Everything's going to seem legitimate. And then eventually the scammers are going to direct them to another opportunity that's going to require a significantly higher deposit. And so this is often more money than the amount that they've received through the smaller trades thus far. So another common situation we want to look at is when the target proactively reaches out to the scammer through social media. Scammers are going to position themselves as cryptocurrency experts and then begin to show off a little. So they're going to show maybe some bundles of cash in their photos, or kind of that they live this, lavish lifestyle on social media. And a lot of times they'll offer an opportunity for their followers to join an exclusive program or a group. However, most of their so-called followers are bot accounts, which, as we all know, are used solely to help them appear legitimate. So by appearing to be a successful trader, the scammer is going to guarantee a specific percentage or amount of return for that really low investment. Of course, the whole too good to be true thing, right? So for example, they'll say for $200, you'll receive a 300% return. Now you can couple that with all the social media comments and all the promises that are being made, and then people are going to ultimately take that chance to invest, even if they do it with some sort of skepticism. So similar to the romance hybrid, they might receive their promised returns the first few times to start to build that trust and credibility until a larger investment opportunity comes their way. So after all this grooming, the victims provide an investment, and then they're usually provided access to a dashboard that looks to show their account is generating really large returns. And they become encouraged by that performance, of course. They listen to the scammer, invest more and more of their money. And some are, some will even, as we have seen, take out personal loans. They'll refinance their homes. They'll liquidate all their assets, just trying to continue with these really large returns. Now, when they finally attempt to withdraw from their account, this is where the scam gets triggered. So some of these victims are told that they have to first pay this exorbitant tax rate before the proceeds can be transferred. And that can look as much as 30 to 40% of the expected gain. So other people may be charged service fees, or told that the deposits need to reach a predetermined level before it can be transferred to their account. So of course, victims are desperate to recover their funds, and most people are going to pay whatever the scammer tells them is required. But in the end, they're never going to get that investment or that supposed return. So eventually, access to the dashboard is going to be disabled. All attempts to contact them go unanswered. The scammer might even close the social media accounts that they used to begin the process in the first place, only to open them back up again using different names, and the cycle, of course, begins to repeat itself. So investigations into these types of scams usually find that the money was transferred to an overseas account, which of course is going to make recovery in the funds very, very difficult, virtually impossible. And that's even after state and federal law enforcement agencies are brought into the equation. So this year, Texas losses to cryptocurrency and investment scams are already $500,000 more than what was reported to BBB last year. And it gets worse, 1.3 million more than what was reported in 2022 and $1 million more than what was reported in 2021. So among all the age groups, the scams are really affecting 45 to 54 and the 55 to 64 age groups the most, with 45 to 54-year-olds losing about $70,000 more at this point. But we do still need to be aware that both 65 plus and 35 to 44 age groups are just slightly below the total annual losses in 2022. So all in all, we're keeping a really close eye on these reports because of the massive impact that they have, and of course the extreme losses that have been associated with each report. Median losses to cryptocurrency and investment scams are at a pretty staggering amount at $5,400, which is, this is a pretty substantial number, which is 3,275% greater than our baseline median loss of $154 across all scam types. So really significant numbers that we're looking at here. Overall losses to the scams account for 30% of the $4.3 million Texas residents have reported this year. So to protect us from falling to these very costly scams and also provide some other great general protection info, I'm going to pass it over to BBB's Director of Partnerships, Devin Benavides.
All right. Thank you, Katie. Wow. So we have gone through a lot of data and information so far today. And so I'm sure the question that you all are having at this point is, all right, so how can we avoid this, right? Well, we're going to tell you. First, let's start with the costliest issue so far that Katie just discussed, and that's the cryptocurrency and investment scams. So first, be extremely skeptical of anyone who guarantees high returns, right? So investing is something that comes with risk, and no single person can tell the future. Fluctuations in the market and unpredictable events can quickly change the performance of any investment, no matter how stable it may seem or is presented, right? So often we see these schemes increase during the new year or surrounding holidays through a themed discount or promotion. I know we've all seen those. Scammers are also extremely attuned to trends. And if there is a major company you're hearing about in the news, they're going to try and frame the opportunity around that. This is just another example of, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. My favorite thing to say. Second, many of these schemes entice people through a get-rich-quick approach that requires little to no risk and no personal effort. Basically, you give them your money and that's all you need to do. Just sit back, wait, and then eventually you'll become a millionaire, right? So they become aggressive if you're asking too many questions, and they're going to try to reframe your concerns as a character flaw. Why are you asking so many questions? You're unable to trust somebody else. Any personal attack from a supposed reputable business is a huge red flag. And if they're an online romantic interest managing your investment, a personal attack is still a huge red flag. Ask questions, ask a lot of them, and demand clarification if you get only vague answers, no matter who is managing your investment. You do not need to become an expert, but you should be able to easily identify what stocks or cryptocurrencies you are investing in. Finally, research the investment group or the individual investor or the business or any other specifics as much as you can before handing over any personal information or money. You can check with Better Business Bureau online. You can call your local office or even just use a search engine and type the name along with scam or reviews to see if other people have had a negative or positive experience with them before. A few minutes of research really might end up saving you from handing over thousands of dollars to a scammer. So moving on to more general tips to avoid some other impactful issues that Texas residents are encountering this year. Employment scams continue to be a high-risk issue, particularly among young adults and recent graduates. With $260,000 in losses this year, we've exceeded total losses to these scams that were reported in 2021 and 2022, and about half of what we saw in 2023. So if the current trend continues, we are likely to see a repeat of the record high losses that we saw last year. So we have a few tips to avoid these schemes as well. First, be knowledgeable about how the hiring process for a remote position should play out. All of the reports we receive are offered as high-paying remote work positions, typically, and many of them revolve around data entry or secretarial jobs, or quality inspections and package reshipment. So if the entire interview and hiring process is done through email or text-based apps with no face-to-face contact, be wary moving forward and do your due diligence to make sure it's a real position. While it's easy and understandable to get caught up in the excitement of applying and accepting a job offer, be cautious if it seems to be happening extremely fast. The hiring process for most companies will stretch over the course of a few weeks. So if you receive an interview and a job offer within a few days after applying, take a step back and do some research. Second, fake checks are used very often in employment scams. So be careful when depositing checks and never return money provided through a check by any other method until it has gone through your bank and has been validated. What we often see is a company is going to provide a new employee with a fake check under the pretense it's supposed to be used to furnish their home office. But they make some sort of mistake that results in them being overpaid, like adding an extra zero. So 600 becomes 6,000. Then they'll demand the extra money be immediately returned and will often threaten legal action. If this happens, take a breath and proceed slowly and methodically. You can even call your bank and let them know you have some suspicions about the check itself. Third, well-known and reputable businesses are often impersonated during an employment scam. If you see an opportunity to work for a company posted on social media or an online job board, double check that it is real by going to their official website and checking their careers page. In some cases, the scammer may try to frame the position as an exclusive opportunity that's not publicly available. In that case, give the company a call and verify that that's something that they do. Remember, employment scams are extremely impactful due in large part to the extent of personal information provided to a potential employer. It isn't so much about the amount of money lost, but the serious risk of identity theft associated with falling for these scams. As always, the Better Business Bureau remains committed to advancing marketplace trust and helping consumers make informed decisions. So thank you all for your time today, and please do not hesitate to reach out about anything that we presented today for more information. So in the next few days, you'll receive an email from our public relations manager, Kyle, providing you with a link to an online media kit, which will contain a recording of today's virtual press conference, as well as copies of all the graphs and data presented today.
Okay, well, it doesn't appear that we have any questions. So if you think of something after this webinar, please feel free to reach out. All the contact information was there. And like Devin mentioned, be on the lookout from that communication from Kyle. We'd also like to thank Kyle. He is our public relations manager, responsible for this presentation, putting it together, all of the data. So big shout out and thank you, Kyle, for all your hard work into making these press conferences happy. Well, they are happy, aren't they? Making these press conferences happen. So with that, we'll let everyone get on about your day, and we appreciate your time and I hope you have a great week. Thanks so much.